The shroud is believed to be a holy relic because you don't get much more holy than the actual blood of Jesus.
Scientists just decoded one of the biggest mysteries in history, the Turin Shroud. Over the centuries, the shroud has sparked debate among believers and unbelievers. Now science stepped in, and what they found inside the cloth was neither simple nor expected. So what exactly did the DNA reveal, and why has it changed the story of the shroud forever? Join us as we break down what scientists found and why it still leaves questions hanging. Shocking. History of the Shroud of Turin. The Shroud of Turin is easy to describe but hard to explain. It is a long piece of linen. On the surface, there is a faint image of a man who looks badly wounded. His body shows signs of beating, blood loss, and exhaustion. For many Christians, this cloth is the burial shroud of Jesus after the crucifixion. To them, it is not just fabric. It is a testimony of one of the most important moments in human history. For others, it is simply an old object that has gathered stories over time. No matter what side of the story you choose to believe, the shroud has a way of getting your attention. For centuries, the argument around the shroud was the same. Believers saw it as a holy relic, something beyond ordinary testing. Skeptics saw it as a creation of the old world, maybe designed to inspire awe and attract pilgrims. Both sides had their arguments, but neither side could settle the matter. The latest DNA analysis has shed more light, and what it found will leave you speechless. You don't want to miss it. Instead of sermons and theories, researchers brought tools. We are talking about microscopes and ray machines, advanced chemical scanners and genetic sequencing machines. The shroud was no longer treated like an object of worship or suspicion. It was treated like evidence. Scientists began examining the cloth as investigators would a crime scene. Every thread was inspected. Every stain was questioned. Blood marks were broken down into their smallest components. Fibers were scanned under different forms of light. The goal was simple: let the material speak for itself. One of the most dramatic steps was the search for DNA. Linen can trap tiny particles deep between its fibers. Skin cells, sweat, blood, and dust. Using sterile equipment, researchers carefully collected material from areas untouched for centuries. When the genetic material was analyzed, the results did not match expectations. There was no single genetic signature. Instead, the DNA showed evidence of contact with many people over long periods. This did not fit the idea of a simple forgery made in one place. The bloodstains also helped their investigations. Chemical tests on the blood revealed signs of extreme physical trauma. High levels of creatinine and ferritin indicate some degree of muscle damage and dehydration. These signs appear when a body is pushed far beyond its normal limits. This was not fake blood. It was real blood from a person who had suffered deeply. The image itself raised more questions. It is not soaked into the cloth. It sits on the very surface, at a depth of about 200 nanometers. That is thinner than a human hair by hundreds of times. Scratch that surface and the image disappears. No paint, no pigment, no brush marks. Tests showed the image formed through oxidation and dehydration of the linen fibers. If you think that is shocking, then wait until you see what we are about to reveal next. According to researchers, there is evidence that ultraviolet energy was involved in creating the image, not heat, not fire, and not any method known in the ancient world. Modern labs can only reproduce similar effects using advanced ultraviolet lasers, tools developed long after the Middle Ages. Taken together, these findings changed the story of the shroud forever. It was no longer just an old cloth with a mysterious picture. It became a kind of record. Every touch, every wound, and every moment of contact left behind physical information. Like a storage device, the linen quietly kept a history written in biology and chemistry. And as scientists looked closer, they realized the story did not stop with the image on the cloth. How exactly could this image have come about? Stay with us as we follow the trail back into history. The image on the Turin Shroud. This story takes us back to the spring of 1898, when the Shroud of Turin was brought out for a rare public exhibition. The city was marking a royal event, and the cloth was displayed inside the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist. At that time, people knew the shroud only as a faint and puzzling image. Up close, it looked more like a pale stain than a picture. Pilgrims leaned in, trying to make sense of it. Many left unconvinced. Others believed out of faith alone. No one expected the exhibition to change the course of the shroud's story. Among those granted special access was Secondo Pia. He was not a scientist. He was a lawyer, a city official, and an amateur photographer with a deep interest in new technology. Photography in the late 19th century was nothing like it is today. There were no digital screens, no instant results, no room for error. Every step, had to be exact. Exposure times were long, equipment was heavy, and one mistake could ruin everything. Pia was allowed to photograph the shroud late at night, after the cathedral had closed. He brought a large wooden camera, glass photographic plates measuring about 50 by 60 centimeters, and powerful magnesium lamps to light the dark interior. The camera had to be placed high on scaffolding to capture the full length of the cloth. Each exposure took time and precision. The heat and brightness of the magnesium light made the work difficult and risky. After completing the shots, Pia returned home to develop the plates. This part of the photography was done in silence and near darkness. Only a dim red light was used to avoid ruining the image. As the glass plate was lowered into the chemical bath, something unexpected appeared. But something happened that left him in complete disbelief. Instead of the usual reversed tones of a photographic negative, a clear and lifelike face slowly emerged. But that wasn't all. The negative showed a positive image. Light areas appeared light. Dark areas appeared dark. The faint stains on the cloth had formed a sharp, detailed face. For the first time, the image on the shroud made sense. It was not a blur anymore. It was a man. The face showed closed eyes, a swollen cheek, a damaged nose, and a beard split at the chin. There were signs of injury, but also a calm expression that did not match the violence suggested by the wounds. The details were clear enough to see depth, contour, and proportion. This was not a symbol. It was a human face with structure and presence. What shocked people even more was how the image behaved. Paintings and drawings do not work this way. When a painted image is turned into a photographic negative, the result looks flat and strange. Shadows appear in the wrong places. Features lose their shape. But with the Turin Shroud, well, that did not happen. The shroud's negative looked like a real photograph of a real person, and that was when everyone began to realize. The image seen on the cloth with the naked eye was already negative. The photographic plate had reversed the image into a positive. In simple terms, it means that the shroud itself carries information in the same way photographic film does. Light and dark were encoded in a way no one in the Middle Ages could have understood. Photography as a science would not be properly developed until the 19th century. The idea of negative images, tonal inversion, and light intensity did not exist in medieval Europe. No artist could have planned such an effect without any way to preview or test the result. The human eye cannot see the world in negative form. The brain cannot imagine it accurately enough to create it by hand. This discovery changed how people talked about the shroud. It was no longer treated as a possible artwork. It behaved like a record, like something that captured a moment rather than illustrated a story. After 1898, the shroud was no longer just a religious object or a historical curiosity. It became a challenge. If this was not art, then what was it? And if it was a kind of imprint, then what else was hidden in the cloth, waiting for tools that did not yet exist? Back to the story of the shroud. For those who may not know, the DNA analysis was not the first attempt to investigate this mystery. The actual number of people who had tried in the past will leave you speechless. Keep watching. Investigations into the Turin Shroud mystery. The first real efforts to decode the Turin Shroud mystery were in the mid-2010s. A research team led by Professor Gianmarco Di Bernardo at the University of Padua was given rare access to study microscopic material trapped in the linen. Their aim was simple and careful: find the secrets hidden in the fabric itself. The biggest danger was contamination. The shroud had been touched, displayed, repaired, and moved for hundreds of years. Any careless sampling would contaminate it by collecting modern traces. To avoid that, the team used sterile micro-vacuum devices, fitted with ultra-fine filters. These tools gently lifted dust and organic particles, not just from the surface, but from deep between the warp and weft of the cloth. Those spaces can seal material away for centuries. Some samples also came from dust collected during the 1988 restoration and stored in sealed containers. In cleanroom laboratories, the material was prepared for sequencing. The researchers focused on mitochondrial DNA. This type of DNA survives longer than nuclear DNA and appears in hundreds of copies per cell. It also passes only through the maternal line, which makes it useful for tracking ancient populations and geographic origin. Using next-generation sequencing, computers processed millions of fragments and compared them with global genetic databases, but they found no clues. The results were not as detailed as expected, although they found some genetic markers pointing clearly to the Middle East. Haplogroups linked to ancient populations from the Levant appeared in the data. Not satisfied with these early results, scientists carried out further investigations and found European DNA, which made sense. The shroud has been kept in Europe for centuries. It passed through places like Chambéry and later Turin, It was handled by clergy, repaired by nuns, and viewed by countless pilgrims. Those centuries left their mark, and the genetics demonstrated that history. But that wasn't all. The data included markers linked to North and East Africa. Haplogroups associated with regions such as Egypt and Ethiopia were detected in the samples. There were also clear signs of South Asian ancestry, including lineages common in the Indian subcontinent. Even East Asian markers showed up, including types most often linked to China. This raised some questions. How could one cloth carry traces from so many distant regions? The answer began to appear when researchers mapped the genetic data against known ancient trade routes. The pattern lined up with the Silk Road, the vast network that connected East Asia, India, the Middle East, and the Mediterranean world. Cities along this route were places of constant movement. Merchants, pilgrims, soldiers, and travelers passed through, touching objects, breathing near them, and leaving behind microscopic traces without ever knowing it. Genetics was only part of the story. Plant pollen was another. Palynologist Max Fry and Israeli botanist Avinoam Danon conducted pollen tests on the sample. Pollen grains were found lodged deep within the fibers, not resting loosely on the surface. Many of the identified plants came from the Middle East and Anatolia. Their presence matched the same route suggested by the genetic data. Some pollen types came from plants that grow only in a narrow region between Jerusalem and Jericho. One plant stood out above all others. Gundalia tourneforti, a thorny desert thistle, accounted for a striking portion of the pollen found. This plant blooms in early spring, around the time of Passover. Its long, sharp thorns match historical descriptions of the crown of thorns. Even more striking was where the pollen was concentrated. Much of it appeared near the head and shoulder areas of the image. Pollen does not travel with intention. It settles where contact happens. Taken together, DNA and pollen told the same quiet story. The shroud did not stay in one place. It moved through regions where cultures met and paths crossed. It gathered traces without effort, layer by layer, century after century. The cloth carried the biological memory of its journey. And yet, even with all this movement, no one could explain the image at the center. What created that figure was a question science had not yet answered. For now, many questions have been answered, but the image on the cloth remains a mystery. Italian researchers had already confirmed that the blood traces were real human blood. The blood type was rare, AB. This blood group is found in only a small percentage of the global population, yet it appears on several early Christian relics linked to the same story. More important than the type were the chemical signals inside the blood. Scientists found unusually high levels of creatinine and ferritin bound to hemoglobin. These substances flood the bloodstream during extreme muscle damage and severe dehydration. We mentioned earlier that this can only happen when a body has been pushed through prolonged physical abuse. Another puzzle had always bothered people. Why did the blood still look red after so many centuries? Old blood normally turns brown or black. The answer lay in bilirubin. This substance is released by the liver during extreme stress and trauma. High levels of bilirubin can slow the darkening of blood over time. In cases of brutal injury, blood can keep its reddish tone far longer than expected. This detail fits the condition suggested by the other markers. The only question no one has answered is how the image formed. Could it be the blood of Jesus? And what connection could it have to the biblical records of Calvary? Well, for now, no one has a definite answer, and when we do, you'll be the first to hear it from us. Thank you for staying with us. Whose blood was the blood on the Turin Shroud? Share your opinions with us in the comment section. If you enjoyed the video, like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Also, click the following video on your screen and you will enjoy it.